But that said, I'm super excited to kick off today's event, AI and Natural Language, Thomson Reuters Perspective on the Future of Tech, sponsored by Thomson Reuters. For those of you who don't know, Fairy Godboss is the largest community for women. Millions of women visit Fairy Godboss for career connections, jobs, community advice, hard to find intel about how companies treat their women talent, and then, of course, virtual events like this one. So today we are thrilled to be joined by two leaders from Thomson Reuters. The first is Isabel, a Vice President of Applied AI Research, and the second is Maria, the Vice President of AI, Machine Learning, and BI Platforms. Moving into discussion, I'd love for you both to take some time to give way more information than you probably want to about who you are, where you're coming in from, and most importantly, your experience at Thomson Reuters. Tell us a bit more about your role and how you got started within the industry. So Isabel, I'm going to turn it over to you for an introduction.
Thanks, Morgan, and it's a pleasure to be on this panel today. So my background, as you might hear it from my accent, is I was born, raised, and educated in France. And then I moved to the US to join West Group at the time, and which became Thomson Reuters. I'm based in Minneapolis, or the Twin Cities area. My graduate studies was in artificial intelligence way back, which looks nothing like what artificial intelligence looks like today, and we can talk about that a little bit later. In my role at Thomson Reuters, I work with research scientists in order to create new AI features for our product and to help our editorial staff to do their job more efficiently. I started as a scientist and I grew up through the ranks within the company.
Wonderful. Thanks, Isabel. Maria, how about you?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Morgan, for having me today. So I'm actually Greek and I'm based in Switzerland. I had a 15-year journey or stop in UK, in London, but now I'm enjoying the Swiss mountains. I've been at Thomson Reuters for over a year and a half, and I joined the data and analytics function within Thomson Reuters. My role specifically focuses on creating platforms to enable our data scientists, to enable our data practitioners to use AI to get insights from data, and doing that in a responsible way, in a flexible way.
Amazing. Thank you both for being here. We've got lots of geographic diversity, both people tuning in as well as this panel today. So very excited to have you with us today. As a reminder, before we get into questions, you do have the chat function as viewers, so feel free to post your questions, comments directly into that chat so we can get to them throughout today's conversation. And as a reminder, this will be shared afterwards as a recording for your review as well. But to jump right in, I would love to start with a super high level question, which is about advice and how you would help those who are interested in pursuing a career in AI and natural language think about how they can get started, either as a new entrant into the industry or as someone who might be pivoting to the space. What advice would you give to those women who are interested in pursuing a career in AI, and how might they overcome any barriers to entry that they might face? So we'll start with you, Isabel.
So the main advice, when I introduced myself, I mentioned that AI has changed a lot since I started and now. And so I guess my main advice is really learn to learn, because if you're going to go into a field like AI and natural language processing or machine learning, what you're going to learn today is going to be obsolete tomorrow, basically. I mean, it's going so fast right now that so you really need to learn how to adapt to change and pick up new concepts. Now, not everybody is going to become an AI scientist or an AI engineer. There are different types of careers that you can have in AI. And if your passion is more about creating tools that others can use, then maybe you don't need to be as deep on the technology and more focused on the product side of AI, like develop chatbots or things like that can be useful. So there is really a wide range of opportunities in the field. Now, to your question is how do you start? I think it's through having a passion. Like, do AI because you're interested in what it can do for humans and for customers eventually, not because it's the hot topic of the day. That would be my advice. Maria, what do you think?
Yeah, actually, I echo to what Isabel is saying. There isn't really a single path to becoming an AI practitioner. So my journey started when I was 14, and I think my dad asked me to use Excel to create a regression model. And people will argue with me whether regression model is AI, but it is. Um, and yeah, so there isn't really a single way, and my path really diverged. So I was a quant, I did models for traders. My background is more on math. Then somehow the world led me to a bit more of an engineering and data career, and through that into platforms and AI. And it really is important to be passionate about what you're doing. You should do AI because you're passionate about AI. You should think about how you can create tools for people to use AI because that is something that you want to enable for others to do. You do need to know the basics. I think in my view and the way that I see the world evolving, access to AI will become more and more available to everyone. But if you want to have a career in it, you have to have some knowledge, you have to have some foundations. So being able to take one or two courses in foundations of AI is important. And from that, try to experiment with what is the item that attracts you the most, whether it's using AI for insights, or whether it's going more the engineering route or going more into the product route, into understanding how you can bring AI into the product. So that I think for me is the advice that I would say for the audience here. See what you're passionate about and how AI fits into that, rather than just doing it because it's the thing of the day.
Yes. Yes. Pursuing it because of your passions, and then recognizing that there's so many different pathways to take, and it's not just one dimensional, as you both sort of referenced your backgrounds coming from diverse industries and sort of entry points into this space. But I'm curious, being at Thomson Reuters, Isabel, you've been there for about 20 years, over 20 years. And I know, Maria, you joined more recently, but I'm curious to know how the company that you're at and what infrastructure exists to help you find support and mentorship within the AI and natural language space, and what are the opportunities that are available for professional development to help nurture this passion and to continue to grow within the field. Maria, let's start with you this time.
So I actually really love that about Thomson Reuters. From all the companies that I've worked in, this I would say is the company that provides the most opportunities for individuals to learn uh, about AI and learn about the newest technology. So we have a variety of mentorship programs within TR that allows people to connect with each other that have different interests, both formal mentorship programs as well as informal mentorship programs like in coffee chats that people can connect and understand how AI is implemented in the company. We have a lot of hackathons. Actually, next week we're doing a hackathon on AI, and we have a lot of interest around that. There's a variety of speakers that are coming within the different within TR, and they are actually talking about how they've implemented AI, like from academics to practitioners, as well as there's a lot of learnings that exist within like our internal portals on many different aspects of the AI, from the practical implementation to the governance element. So there is a lot out there for people to learn, and a lot of socialization and communication as well that sits on top of that allows our community to exploit what is out there and be aware of all the content that is being created.
That's great. Isabel, do you have anything to add there about how Thomson Reuters has either helped you grow as a professional in AI or brought you mentors or other supporting networks to continue your growth in this space?
So one of the things that Maria touched on is this notion of community. And a few years ago, we created a AI Everywhere learning track that we can still use in order to help people learn more about AI. And tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, on Friday, we actually have a company-wide learning day centered around AI, where everybody in the company can learn a little bit about the concept around AI and how to maybe evolve the way they're thinking or get AI thinking type of things. And it can be from somebody who's in sales to somebody who's in marketing or engineering. So it's really open to everybody in the company and a way to upskill. Maria mentioned that we have a series where we invite external speakers in order to talk about new trends in AI or new development in AI. And we also encourage, especially in the group I'm in, which is a labs group, which is made of AI, ML scientists and engineers, to follow conferences in the field, whether they're industry conference or academic conferences. And that's something that is really useful to keep your knowledge up to date.
Yeah, there's just a lot of opportunities at your fingertips internally.
One other element, which is for people that don't know much about AI, is Thomson Reuters offer this idea of gigs, and you can do a gig in anything. And so a gig is a team who needs help with a project short term, and somebody else in the company might have a little bit of bandwidth in their daily work, and they can sign up to do the gig. And so that's a good way to learn about AI, is signing up for a gig that has to do with AI.
That's awesome. It's like a mini internship, but it's internal.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that sounds amazing. And now I want every company to offer gigs, because that would have helped with retention at my previous companies as well. Super curious to pivot a little bit to tactical skills. You both sort of mentioned at a high level having a passion and genuine interest in this space and being aware of all the opportunities that exist to expand your knowledge and network and build relationships in the field. But when it comes to the skills that people and professionals need to succeed in this dynamic industry, talk to us about the skills that have either helped you get to where you are, that you've seen others in the industry demonstrate, and then you both earlier alluded to the variety of pathways that exist and how people can go in different directions. So once we talk about the skills, I'd love to pivot a little bit to the different types of roles and career paths that people can pursue within this landscape. So Isabel, can you talk to me about skills that would be helpful for folks? And then maybe Maria, you can pivot and hit on the career paths.
Mm-hmm. So we already covered the skills a little bit earlier on. And Maria reminded me that math and engineering is probably a good thing to have if you want to work in AI. So I would say technical skills are probably good. You don't need to be a deep technical expert, but even if in a product, you want to understand what's feasible and not feasible. So you need to have at least that knowledge. I mentioned learning agility because the field is moving so fast. And the last one is really being human-centric. So hearing, like listening skills or communication skills, and to some extent empathy, which is not really a skill. I mean, you can acquire a skill, right? And putting the human at the center of the thinking that you're doing is what I would recommend for skills to start and develop, especially as you take on more and more AI development.
That's great. And Maria, do you want to hit on a little bit more depth about the different opportunities and career paths that exist? You both are in different sort of lanes in Thomson Reuters, and I'm sure there are other related avenues that people have taken internally. So speak to the vastness of the dynamic jobs that exist within this space.
This is, for me, this has been amazing coming at Thomson Reuters and seeing actually the different paths of how AI touches like different functions and different areas within an organization. So we've had I see individuals coming from let's start from the product side. I will start from the the end, let's say. So you have the product teams that care about servicing the customers in the best possible way and optimizing workflows, optimize the insights and the content that they present to our customers. So product teams really need to understand AI and how and when to use AI. So you have the product teams that touch AI. You have the our user as user experience and UI team and our design team that basically is looking at how do we surface AI in our products in a way that is understood and aligns with what the customer expects, because it's not just about having AI, it's also about how you surface that in your product and the overall user experience. Then we have the labs team here that is actually responsible for creating AI and thinking about actually how to solve these complicated problems coming from the product teams. We have our data and model governance team that's looking at the way that we're creating AI and whether that AI that we put in our products is responsible. You have my team that's responsible for the tools around AI and how we put and how we enable the data scientists to create AI and experiment with AI fast. And then you also have the analytics teams that are doing AI not on a product level or embedding AI into the products, but doing AI to understand how our customers are accepting the things that we are proposing them from AI, right? Like what insights we can use, how we can be more predictive with the adoption of the changes that we make. And as such, you see it across, I think, such a wide range of of teams, let alone obviously talking about our more core functions like engineering teams, security teams that are looking, okay, how do we adopt this new feature from AI and how do we do that in a secure manner? As such, like I really don't think there is, especially now that AI is everywhere, there isn't really a path that I would say will be untouched about AI from by AI. And that's what I think people should be passionate about, that they can embed AI in the thing that they're doing and recognize the vastness of career paths that they can take to serve AI and to work with AI.
Maria, did you mention governance and the
Yeah,
fact that,
data model. Yeah.
yeah, so one area where you can be AI or AI adjacent is actually how the AI models are applied and what is their impact on the users of the AI, and that has a various backgrounds, basically, user with privacy regulation, for instance, and things like that.
Can you both hear me? Want to make sure I'm still connected.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Just a little bit of Wi-Fi issues. But Maria, what you mentioned is so exciting, right? The idea that there are so many different pathways. There is no field that AI won't touch. And I think that's an encouraging part for those who are listening and interested in entering into this industry, just finding your lane and getting really excited about all that exists here. I want to take 1 minute to pivot to some audience questions because a few folks are very interested in that hackathon, Maria. So I'm wondering, a couple folks are wondering, is it open to the public? Is it a virtual event? And then kind of just speak more about hackathons at Thomson Reuters and what those look like. I think people are just curious to know how y'all execute that internally.
I hate that I will disappoint the audience, but it is not open to the public. It's open to the employees of Thomson Reuters. So maybe an opportunity for people to join Thomson Reuters, but it is open to individuals within TR, and we specifically organized it in a way that people from different backgrounds can attend, whether they have a deep experience with AI and engineering or not, by kind of using both tools that are low code and tools that are high code. I think in the past, Thomson Reuters has also done hackathons. I might be mistaken, but I think maybe in the past they have done hackathons that have been open to people outside of Thomson Reuters. In this situation, because we are trying to do something with a hackathon that actually solves an internal, let's say, that gets insights and kind of addresses use cases that are related to the products that we offer and related to the activities that we do. Because of that nature, it's something that we are doing internally and not open to external audiences.
Not yet, but maybe soon. That's great.
Yeah, maybe
Yes.
the next one.
Love that. Thank you, Maria. So pivoting a little bit, a few folks have already asked about this. So this relates to a question that I have as well, which is about some examples of how Thomson Reuters is using AI and natural language in product development to help your clients. I imagine there's a lot of proprietary topics that we should stay away from, but if there's anything that's publicly available that y'all are excited to share about things that your team is working on and how you've deployed AI internally, I think folks would love to kind of hear a case study or an example about how y'all have added AI to your product suite or used it to help service your customers. So Isabel, do you want to jump in here first?
Sure. We've used AI in our legal research product, flagship product called Westlaw, for a long time. We, depending on how you define AI, I guess, but at least the first time where I would say we've really used machine learning in order to do something would be in the early 2000s when we introduced a recommender system to suggest different type of materials. Maybe I should take a little pause and explain what Westlaw does. So Westlaw is a search engine for lawyers to help them find the relevant law. And the way you find the relevant law can be through the law itself, so that can be cases or statutes, but also through reviews or editorial content that's created by others. And so in the early 2000s, we started suggesting content on the site that was not the primary law, but what we call the secondary law. And that was one of our first uses of machine learning and recommender system, which is a subset of AI within one of our products. Later on, we've included machine learning and AI inside the search functionality itself. And we keep improving and using natural language processing in order to add more and more metadata, for instance, to our content in order to help with the products or offer new products to some extent. So on the legal research side, we've used AI quite significantly with question answering systems as well, for instance. Maria, do you have examples elsewhere that you may want to talk about?
I think Isabel covered very well how we use AI in our products. We obviously also have AI within Reuters, within our news and editorial capabilities. We also, as I mentioned before, we're using AI within let's say, the way that we understand how products are touching our customers and how internally our operations are flowing and how we can be better at managing like our internal systems, our internal operations. But in addition to how we use AI in our products, we also are, let's say, investing in AI in a way. For example, like I think last year we acquired ThoughtTrace, which is a company that uses a lot of AI, and we've integrated within our product offering. So we are both investing within AI within the product internally with the products that we do, but we also are looking at how we can look at the outside world and understand how we can integrate with that.
That's fantastic. Isabel, something to add?
I'd put a plug. If you're interested in learning about what we've done in AI at TR, there is actually an AI at TR page on our website. And so you can see everything that we've done as part of our efforts in developing more AI in the products. They're mostly product features through that website.
We'll have to get the link and drop it for the audience. So more to come, you guys, for those who are tuning in and want to have access to that link. Well, pivoting just a little bit to sort of what's coming next for AI. You both have been in the industry for quite some time. And Maria, in your biography, right, you alluded to the work that you do when it comes to responsibly using AI. And I'd love to sort of understand a bit more about what impact do you believe AI and natural language and machine learning will have on society as a whole in the years to come, both where we're at now, where we'll be in 10, 20 years? And then more specifically, what can people who work in the industry do to ensure that these technologies are used in an ethical and a responsible manner? So Maria, I'll turn that to you first to kick us off.
Yeah, I'm really, I think probably because my background, so before joining Thomson Reuters, I was a chief data officer in a bank, and because of that, probably um, I have a high respect of privacy and a high respect of regulations and and understanding between what good looks like and what bad can look like. Um, as such, I love the idea that we can use AI in our products, but in a responsible manner. And the way that it's important to deal with that question is to allow experimentation. So allow internally for our teams, for our data science teams, to experiment with AI, but ask some key questions at the beginning of the experimentation. So when they're first looking at using AI, it's important to experiment with AI. It's important to understand the use case. So why are you doing what you're doing and what data are you using? So for me, that's one of the first and fundamental questions to start tackling the ethics of AI, because AI starts with data, and if you know the way you've collected your data or you're processing your data is not ethical, then it stops there, right? Like despite of what you might do with AI later on. And then after but still enable, right, enable the experimentation. Don't take it away, don't make it frictional for the data scientists, but enable them. But before then AI goes into product, and it goes external and is kind of now used for something that touches like a decision or touches a product, then there is a safeguard that we have in place. And I think Isabel alluded to, a whole team that exists within Thomson Reuters that looks at asking some questions around the ethical considerations of your model, the documentation of your model, the increasing the transparency of how your model is going to be used, and touching things around explainability, around bias, um, around understanding the performance of your model, so that we know that when we are putting something in our products, when we are doing something within our operations, we have taken these considerations in mind. And we are really looking at how we continually educate the teams within Thomson Reuters, and I think also with the customers that we have around the responsible use of AI and our approach. So, but I think that the important for me and where my role comes in is that a lot of the guidance and a lot of the requirements of AI of responsible AI can be theoretical in nature, and can be, I would say, they could have an implementation where they're very theoretical and generic and as such not implementable. Or they could have like the implementation that you have basically a bottleneck in your process and it stops all productivity. What I like about the approach that Thomson Reuters has taken is that we are looking at some of the practical implementations of the guidance on responsible AI, not just the guidelines and the principles, but also how practically it can be embedded across the life cycle of the models, and from experimentation, data acquisition, all the way to product enhancements.
That's great. It seems like it's just a full spectrum of people being conscious about how to ethically deploy and experiment with AI at Thomson Reuters. And that culture is, I think, really important to your point. So people know why they're collecting this data, how they collected it, how we can deploy it and use it effectively to help customers in the long run. Isabel, did you have anything you wanted to add about, how people can ensure to best use AI in an ethical and responsible way?
No, I think Maria covered it quite a bit. One thing that we do in our group, especially for natural language, is we know from other people researching it that the data that we might use, generic data, whether it's internet or in our case law, is capturing historical bias to some extent. And just yesterday on Twitter, I was looking at an example where ChatGPT assumed that a doctor was a male and a nurse was a female, and instead of adapting to if I change the pronouns in the question, then maybe it's normal to inverse my answer, it considered it as a typo. And so that's one of the things that we take a look at. There's not always a solution when the data and the culture has been that way. So you also mentioned, in your original question, Morgan, what is the impact as a whole on society? I would say the impact, we have to worry about the impact when it targets or when it's specific to individuals and where we are at risk of amplifying things that we don't want to amplify as a culture. Now, that's the bad aspect to some extent. I want to give an example of something that I thought was really cool that happened to me in the grocery store a couple of weeks ago, where I was looking for something and there was a clerk working there, and that person was hard of hearing. And they used their phone and the the speech to text on their phone to understand what I was saying. So it transcribed what I was saying. And I have to say, it did a pretty good job despite my French accent. And then they were able to type back where the answer to me. And I thought that was a really good use of technology that has AI underneath to transcribe the speech. That was a positive aspect on society towards inclusion of people with impairments.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic example about how AI can sort of level the playing field for people of different abilities. So I thank you for sharing that. And I'm curious too, you mentioned this a little bit, Maria and Isabel, we'll start with you for this one. How does TR approach balancing innovation and risk management? So we can have these really positive, game-changing examples of how AI is best used to help customers and help society. I'm wondering, like, what are the checks and balances like internally that you've seen that folks should be mindful of when they are developing new artificial intelligence and natural language technologies? So Isabel, I'm wondering if you can speak sort of at a high level to those checks and balances.
Maria talked a lot about the model governance and the specific team that we have. But what we also do is really build into the culture of when we build AI, what does it mean? And so we really are looking for what is the purpose of the feature that we want to develop for AI, and is the AI solution that we're developing fit for that purpose? The other thing that we do is we review the usage of the model. So there's two types. There is a type where we get explicit feedback. So we have AI models that are used by humans, and the humans kind of like a simplified version is they thumb up or down what the AI has proposed. And so we can measure how often it's thumbed up or down. And if it starts degrading, so we've got more thumbs down that we anticipate, then we have to take a look at the AI again. And the other way is more anecdotal, where we don't really have this implicit feedback. So think about Google, for instance. There is AI in their search engine. And so what you might track is how often people click on the number one link. And if that goes down, maybe your AI is going down. Now, it's not going to address some of the biases. And that's where we have this other team or these measures that take a look at, is it still fit for purpose? And are we addressing some of the issues that we wanted to keep an eye on when we develop the models?
That's helpful. Thank you. I want to jump to an audience question that fits in quite nicely with one that I have for you all as well. So a question is, what are your top 3 book recommendations for personal or professional development when it comes to AI? And do you have any AI-related podcasts that you might recommend for beginners or people who are new to this space? And then I think we could take that question and extrapolate, like, how do you stay up to date with the trends in this industry? What are your resources? Who are you following on Twitter, Isabel, right? Who are people and magazines and publications that folks should be paying attention to? Isabel or Maria, I'll leave it to both of you to just jump in as you will.
So unfortunately, I don't have any book recommendation. No, actually, I mean, all the book recommendation I might have are super technical because I'm on the technical aspect. However, I do have a class recommendation from Andrew Ng, who used to be AI at Google, and it's called AI for Everyone. And so that would be really something that I recommend. I believe it's a 6-hour course. If you want to be a little bit more technical, there is a video, a YouTube set of videos called Making Friends with Machine Learning from Cassie K. So I never remember her last name. You can find her on LinkedIn. She's the Chief Decision Officer at Google. Last name starts with K, and she posts a lot and she shares a lot about AI. And that's one of the person I follow on LinkedIn and Twitter. On Twitter, I would follow people that work in AI. So somebody like the chief AI scientist at Meta called Yann Lequin, a company called Hugging Face. So Hugging Face is a company that is trying to help with open source models. So you might be aware that we've got companies like OpenAI that have created models like GPT and ChatGPT. And those are what we call closed models. So we don't know exactly how they were created or what data went into creating them. The answer to that is an open source movement. And Hugging Face is helping with that, where they're trying to reproduce or to give equivalent models, but that are open for people to look at and the data sets as well. And so I would follow people from that company, for instance. And then if you're interested in like the ethical AI or debunking the AI hype, there is a computational linguistic professor at University of Washington called Emily Bender. That's good to follow. And at Hugging Face, formerly of Google, there is a person called, I think it's Margaret Mitchell, that talks about the ethical use of AI. A couple of other people is
so many resources, Isabel.
Timney Gebru. So it's really more like the ethical uses of AI. Timney Gebru. And then I love that movie or documentary around AI bias, but I can't remember her name. Olu. I'll find it and I'll post it. It's a MIT researcher that showed that image recognition had bias against dark-skinned people, and she's really involved into advocating for transparencies in that space.
Okay, this is great. We'll have to have someone on our team sort of begin posting all of the resources that you mentioned. Maria, how about you? Any quick book recommendations or podcasts that you've been listening to stay abreast of the trends and the landscape?
Not a book, actually. So if I think about the book that I will ask people to do is, I don't know, Fundamentals of C++. So I don't think that necessarily will resonate with the audience here. But for me, I actually really recommend exactly the same thing that Isabel recommended in terms of Andrew NZ. Like, actually, this was one of the first courses that I took on AI, and I love it because actually, in addition to the AI for everyone, there's also a course around AI for, I think, business or stakeholders, which kind of approaches it from a different angle on when to use an AI, what problems are good to be solved from AI, and what are not. So he also has a lot of presence on LinkedIn, so I follow him on LinkedIn as well, and this is one of my best, I would say, individuals to follow. There's also an article, or let's say a network, which is called ML Engineers within LinkedIn, that has publications predominantly around ML ops type of activities. That is something that I look into quite a bit, as well as things that are posted by big cloud providers. Due to my role, like I will look at the publications from AWS, from Azure, around the new technologies that they're opening up and the work that they're doing.
That's great. Thank you. And I think we're going to begin posting all those recommendations in the comments soon. Before we jump into more audience questions, I wanted to pivot to one more. At Fair God Boss, we have a tradition of asking panelists the following question. So what we've observed is that women don't always feel comfortable bragging or taking ownership about their amazing accomplishments. So I'd love for you both to share with us an accomplishment, either personal or professional, that you are most proud of. And Maria, we can start with you for this one.
So as I mentioned, I've been at Thomson Reuters for a year and a half, and building AI platforms wasn't something that I had done before. So after a little bit less than a year, almost a year after I joined Thomson Reuters, I presented to AWS reInvent the work that we're doing internally and how we've built the AI platform. And that for me is something that I think I'm both proud about this in terms of what we achieved in that space of the year, obviously with the work that existed even before me, but also something that is unnatural for me. So the ability on presenting on a conference and kind of moving away from coding or reviewing coding or kind of telling people what to code first and what to second, I think was really nice because it wasn't necessarily like my natural let's say item or habitat, let's put that way.
It
So
was out of your comfort zone.
completely out of my
Yeah.
comfort zone. So I appreciate that I was given the opportunity, and I love the fact that I was able to present, and I love both the technical aspect of what that meant for me and what it meant, like technical expertise that I had gained within the year, as well as the ability to present to, I don't know, 500-600 people about the work that we do. So
That's awesome. Congratulations. I know that was probably very impressive and a great conversation for you and the AWS team to have. So that's
Morgan, we lost you for a minute.
Oh, I'm back. Isabel, do you want to share your accomplishment with us?
Yeah, so as you say, I don't like bragging, or people are, but over the last year, some people on my team have been trying to improve or over an algorithm that we developed 10 years ago. And it turns out that it's actually been it's a very good baseline. And we have to do a lot of work in order to improve that. And so I kind of feel proud having created something that has resisted or passed the test of time, and it still is a good solution 10 years on, even though we have made a lot of advancement in AI. And so it's kind of old-fashioned AI is still hard to beat with new trends.
But still an accomplishment that you should be proud
Right,
of.
exactly.
So, yes. Love that. Thank you. We're going to take a couple of audience questions. The first one is a little bit technical, so I'll leave it to you two to extrapolate what this person means because I'm not an AI expert. But first question, where do you see AI going after LLMs and diffusion models? Do either of you want to jump in for that one? Isabel, looks like
I think Isabel, would be best placed here for sure.
Yeah, it was great. I don't know where it's going, truthfully. Like, it's changing so fast that really what you need to do is adapt to the pace of change. If you read the press or social media on the topic, there is a lot of very split opinions. Some people will say, well, it's just a tool that helps you write things. So a large language model is really something that has been trained to predict the next word. And so it's good at spitting words out that it's or word sequences that it's seen in the past, and that's all that is. And then you've got the other area which says, no, it's much more than that. Like, and I just saw that yesterday on Twitter again. Like, this is sentience. Like, those models have intelligence, can think for themselves, which I would put a disclaimer. I don't believe that's true. And so I think what we need to do is we need to really look at AI for what it is and not what we want it to be. AI, as we see in science fiction, doesn't exist yet. And so to me, AI is really a tool, and large language model or diffusions are new tools to help us. Now, they're going to have a fairly big impact, I think, on society because they can be misused. And the misuse is, it's not the AI itself that has the impact, is how people use it. And the misuse is what will have an impact. And so, for instance, it's already been misused to create deepfake. When it's just for fun, that's fine. But if it's a deepfake to impersonate people and attack their livelihood by like accessing their bank account, for instance, through a face thing, then that's a problem.
No, you bring up a good point, which is something that Maria mentioned earlier about sort of this collective consciousness to just take care a little bit more about how we're using AI, why we're collecting certain data, how we're deploying that data, and what models we're using with it. So I think that's a great example. Maria, did you want to add anything to this question?
I think for me the most important thing is as we overall with technology, we humans adapt. So we adapt um, to things that we didn't have before. So we definitely within our generation we have adapted to things that I didn't have when I was 10 or when I was 20. The biggest thing for me is as society we need to remain intelligent. That for me is my I guess my fear in a way that we shouldn't rely too much on AI to do the thing everything for us. We should still like I still love the idea of the proof of why 1 + 1 = 2 instead of I guess I'm a mathematician as well. And I will still love the idea of teaching my kid. I have a 6-year-old how to add numbers rather than use a calculator. I love the convenience of calculator. It has a place in it, a place on earth, and it has a place for me to use it. But I still want people to understand why 1 + 1 = 2 in a way. And I think the same extension for me is with AI. It's good to use it as a tool, but we need to be able to understand what the tool is doing and be intelligent about it.
No, thank you for adding that. Maria, I have a question directly for you from an audience member. You mentioned that you worked as a quantitative developer at one point. Very curious about how you got into that role.
So I have a PhD in pure math, and I got into that role because I just liked math and coding. Is is the honest answer, and I was like, okay, what can I do that is as close as possible to me, still being involved in math and doing coding? And I got into the role by applying to many positions and finally getting into one. And I think that's something that I want to actually add overall to the audience here, like for any career that you choose, AI or otherwise, persistence is key. Like you're likely not going to get the first job that you're going to apply to, whether it's your initial part of your career or like like at a later stage when you are like trying to transition career. So not giving up and persisting is how I got my quant role, and by reading like a book on options, futures, and other derivatives for everyone that knows. But yeah, it was love of math and love of coding.
I think that's a great tidbit. Loving those two things, staying persistent, brushing up on some language and sort of books that you were reading, and then just going after it relentlessly.
Yeah.
That's a great takeaway. Last audience question before we begin to slowly wrap up. And Isabel, this might be a great one for you to take. Can you talk a little bit more about how AI is used in the newsroom now and how you anticipate news will evolve in the near future with the use of AI?
Okay, so I'm probably not the one to take it, and I don't know that we have anybody on this call that can take it. As I mentioned earlier, I'm working mostly with our legal professional segment, and I'm not super familiar with what we do with the news. I do know that we've used AI. We have a separate team that specializes on AI for the newsroom and Reuters. What I do know is they are very interested in using AI and any tools they can in order to help with the editorial process as well as the generating news, but also allowing people to find the news. And so we use AI in order to help access Reuters videos, for instance, by providing some lightweight transcripts of the video and making the content more searchable. In the past, which is not related to what we do today, we've done a couple of projects with Reuters in order to alert journalists on local events. So we used some social media platform in order to identify things that were happening locally to inform journalists to go look at whether that was a story or not. So that's one area when you can use AI as well. But otherwise, what we do today, I'm not sure.
Not sure. It's, as you said, it's changing rapidly. So what we say now may not apply in 30 minutes or an hour. It's just changing so quickly.
Hopefully tomorrow morning.
Hopefully tomorrow morning. Perfect. Well, I have sort of a runaway question, but very curious. You both have had very interesting careers, and I think I'd love to know a bit more about when you are looking at the younger version of yourself, like Maria and Isabel at 10 years old or 15 years old. First question is, what do you think she would think about what you're doing now and like what you've accomplished? You think she'd be happy, excited about the work you're doing? And then second question, what advice would you give to her? So I'll let you start with this one, Maria.
So I always wanted to do math. So when people asked me when I was like 6 or 7 what I want to do, I said math. So the thing that I love is that I haven't changed that. And I probably, what I would tell my 10-year-old self is that there's many versions of math around there. So very different what I would have thought, and very different way that I've worked, let's say, with math or with data throughout my career and throughout my studies as well. So that I would say is learning, because I would have a specific, my version of that at 10 years old or 15 years would be I'll be in academia, but this has now involved quite a bit into the role that I do. And yeah, I guess I would say to my a little bit older self, I would say, when going back to the point of how I got my career, of how I got my first job, um, persisting and also having trust in the decisions that you make. Um, I've changed my career a few times, not completely outside of what I like, again, towards the math or data space, but definitely very different what I do now on the platforms than being a quant. And one of the advice that I got from my dad has really impacted me. When every time I was at a critical point when I was making a decision, he would tell me, okay, the decisions you've made in the past have been correct. So the likelihood is that this decision will always be correct. And I think that kept motivating me and keeps motivating me in the path that I take and the decisions that I make, whether changing career or within my career or, on a day-to-day life.
That's great advice. It reminds me of I don't know where I heard this from, but it's what I also tell myself and my friends, which is there's no such thing as a wrong decision if you're making it with like a clear head and a clear heart, and like all options are good options for the most part, right? And to your dad's point, you've made the right options, the right choices so far, so the likelihood is great that you'll keep making them. Isabel, same question to you. Do you think your younger self would be happy and impressed with what you're doing? And then second piece, what advice would you give to her?
Okay, so I don't know. Well, I guess she would be impressed.
I'm sure she would too.
So when I was 10, 15 years old, I really liked languages and history, but I was not that good at them. I mean, I was good at languages, but I was better at math. And so I feel like looking at natural language processing or computer science, you've merged both the language and the math. And so I think she would be happy with where I landed. What advice would I give at that age? I'm not sure that I would be Gabba. Just be a kid. It's the advice that I would give her. Don't over achieve. But to a younger professional self, I think it would be something that we hear all the time. Like, don't wait until you're 100% sure. Jump in. And if it doesn't work, you can always pivot. So it's a little bit a different version of what Maria was saying, which is there is no wrong decision. Like the decision that you've taken, I've made the path to where you're at today. And if you don't like it, you'll be able to change it. I had one experience where I made a choice and I didn't like it. I pivoted and it worked out just fine.
Yep. Trust your gut and just go for it. Okay, we're getting close to time. So first and foremost, Isabel and Maria, thank you both so much for joining us today and offering wonderfully sage advice and wisdom and your knowledge of this space. I know I speak on behalf of the Fairy God Boss community that when I say thank you, it was really helpful to hear from you. Thank you to everyone who joined us today and offered questions and comments. It's great to see such an amazing turnout, and I hope this was a helpful discussion. As a reminder, we will be sending out the recording of today's event along with some additional resources to learn more about opportunities at Thomson Reuters after today's call. But in the meantime, feel free to check out Thomson Reuters' profile on fairygodboss.com, see their jobs, hear from women who work there like Isabel Maria, and explore whether or not it might be a good fit for you. Outside of that, you will also have an opportunity to give us feedback because in the spirit of improvement, we're always trying to learn and do better. So please head to the Typeform tab on the right-hand side of your screen to share your thoughts about today's session via a quick survey. It should take less than a minute. But for now, I want to again thank you both, Isabel and Maria, and thank you audience members for joining. Have a fantastic rest of your week as April wraps up, and we will see you next time.
And thank you, Morgan, for the facilitation.
Oh, you're very welcome. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.